Hey everybody, it's Mandy from Chapel Forge. So today at auction, I got tons of peppers. I got jalapeños, I got sweeties, bell peppers, hot wax peppers. I got a great deal on them. I think I wound up spending like $98 on 4 bushels. And some of these are kind of very specialty peppers. So I was pretty excited about that. They had an amazing variety and they take a beautiful picture. So I'm gonna do a couple things with these peppers, and I'll probably just do a video on each of the specific things because you might not care about some of those things. So what we're gonna do tonight is we're gonna do balsamic red pepper jelly. So I've mentioned before that I'm not really doing a ton of jams and jellies, but most of the jams and jellies that I have on the shelf, or actually all of them, are sweet. So grape, strawberry, blueberry, orange marmalade, like whatever. They're like what I would consider using on breakfast toast or stirring into oatmeal or on pancakes or something like that. I do not, however, have many pepper jellies, and we love pepper jelly. I have pepper mustard, which I'm not making this year because we already have plenty of it. But we have like no pepper jelly, and we love pepper jelly. So the first one I'm gonna do is balsamic red pepper jelly. So I have here 10 red bell peppers. We're gonna get those washed up and then move on to the next. So I recently got myself some ceramic knives, which I've been meaning to do for months and months, and I don't know, whatever. We were busy moving and I didn't. But I got these on Amazon. I'll link them in the description. They are fantastic. My dad has these exact same ones. I think there's 3 sizes and the peeler or whatever that came with it. So I'll link my Amazon affiliate link in the description if you want to get these. But these are amazing for namely peppers and tomatoes. Anything with like a soft skin. You know how when you're trying to use like your typical metal knife and it just never seems like you can cut tomatoes very well? This is the answer. All right, so obviously it's the next day, or maybe it's not obvious. Did I have this shirt on? I probably did. Zuzu was not having it, so I literally just left all this sitting here because she was just not having it, and that's okay. We're gonna charge on today. So I have all of my red bell peppers cut. So as I mentioned, there's 10 red bell peppers. We needed to sit 1 cup of the red bell peppers aside, so I sat that aside. And then we need 6 jalapeno peppers. So I have my gloves on. If you've not done hot peppers before, I highly recommend gloves. Some people don't. I have gotten too much trauma from hot peppers. And some people laugh because they'll be like, jalapenos aren't even hot. Whatever your comfort level is with this, do whatever you want. But I'm wearing gloves. We're gonna chop up 6 jalapeno peppers. If you want it a little spicier, leave the seeds in. If you don't want it as spicy, take the seeds out. All right, so for de-seeding peppers, I love this tool. I'll link it in the description. I just got it from Amazon. But it's really nice to really get into the pepper, get out the seeds if that's what you wanna do. All right, so we have our bowl here with our jalapenos and our red peppers. We're gonna put them into the Vitamix, puree it up, and make like a jelly goo. All right, so this process is a little bit of labor of love, so be prepared for the long haul on this one. So what we're doing is we pureed this up in the Vitamix. I have a little bit left. I'll puree that up in a minute, okay? I have my strainer over my 5-gallon bucket, and I have my flour sack towel. So I'm gonna put my flour sack towel over my strainer, over my bucket, and then I'm gonna pour my puree. This is typical of our kitchen this time of year. There's canners and stock pots stacked everywhere and they just get knocked over. Anyway, going to pour my puree into here and I'm gonna let it drain for 30 minutes. If after 30 minutes I don't have enough juice for the recipe, which I believe I need 1.5 cups of juice, then I'll put some boiling hot water on it to try to encourage it to make a little bit more juice. So that is the next step. All right, so Zuzu and I finished working this through. So this is really good pulp. So I think what I'm gonna do, my freeze dryer is still not up and working yet. I'll do a video about that whole procedure here at some point. The parts should be coming this week for what I need to fix it. Whoa, easy. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put this, basically it's like tomato paste, pepper paste, not tomato, pepper paste into a bowl, and then I might have to put it in the freezer depending on when I get the freeze dryer fixed, but I'm thinking I could freeze dry this and I could make some really freaking awesome seasoning out of this pepper goo instead of just throwing it to the table. All right, so we poured off our juice. We got a little more than 3 cups and I didn't have to add any water to it, so that's super exciting. All right, so some clarification on how much this makes. So the book wants you to do 7 4-ounce jars, which would be 7 quarter pints. Yeah, 7 quarter pints. Okay, so quarter pints are the little teenies. I was gonna do this in half pints, so I'm gonna get 7 half pints out of this. If you do it in quarter pints, you get 14. All right, so next up is we're gonna add to our pan our 3 cups of pepper juice. You're gonna put in your reserved cup of peppers, okay? And then you're gonna do 1 cup of red wine vinegar, 6 tablespoons of balsamic vinegar, 4 tablespoons of lemon juice, okay? So we're gonna get all that in the pot first. All right, so next we need 12 tablespoons of pectin. So I still have some bulk pectin left from last year, so I'm gonna use that up. I imagine you could sub something like Thermoflow or Clear Gel if that's more of what you're into, or arrowroot powder or whatever. I'm working through this pectin, and eventually I wanna switch to Pomona's pectin, but I might as well finish this up first. So we're gonna do 12 tablespoons of pectin. You're gonna whisk this in very quickly. You wanna make sure that it doesn't clump up. So 2 notes on whisking in your pectin. I love a flat whisk. Obviously you can use a regular whisk, it doesn't really matter. And so like for this, you need 12 tablespoons of pectin. If you whisk in like 4 tablespoons and then whisk in the middle 4 and then the last 4, you'll likely get less clumping, so that should help with your gelling. All right, so I'm gonna talk while I'm whisking because this next part can get a little intense. So we're trying to bring it to a boil and also trying not to burn it. I've talked about this before. If you have a propane stove, it seems like it can be a lot easier to burn things than if you're working on electric. So we're bringing this to a boil, and then we need 6.5 cups of sugar for this. I don't love how much sugar is in this, but I have this pectin to use up. And then, Lord willing, once I switch to Pomona's pectin, I can do things like this and use a little bit less sugar. But at least we're not buying it at the store where it has a whole list of other random chemicals in it that we don't know what it is. We can put cane sugar in this and at least feel a little bit better about it. So we are getting rapidly to a rolling boil. So I need to get 6.5 cups of, and if you're worried it's gonna boil over or burn, just turn it down a little bit. I probably should have gotten my sugar ready ahead, but it'll be fine. So 6.5 cups of sugar. So we're going to add all the sugar at once and then bring it back to a rolling boil. All right, so we got all of our sugar worked in, 6.5 cups. I whisked it as I put it in. So right now we're waiting for this to come back to a boil. We're going to let it boil hard. And continue to stir it constantly. We're going to let it boil hard for 1 minute. Try really hard not to let it boil over. And then we're going to remove it from the heat and skim off the foam. So if you haven't gotten your jars ready, have somebody stir this while you go do that quick. All right, so we have a little bit of foam in here. You want to skim your foam off, have your hot jars ready, your hot water in your canner. We're going to pour these into jars. Wipe the rims really well with your vinegar rag because it's probably going to get sticky. Put your rings on, finger tight as usual, and then you're going to drop them into the canner. So I've talked about my canning ladle before. It's something that I use all the time. I feel like you can't really successfully can without a canning ladle and a canning funnel, in my opinion. I mean, I know that people did it way back when, but it definitely makes your life a lot easier. So I can link those in the description too. You can just grab those on Amazon. So the important part of this recipe is that you make sure that you have the vinegars. That's what's going to give you your acidity, because peppers alone are really not acidic enough to water bath can. So if you, as far as the consistency goes, if you don't want to add in the peppers, like the pieces of pepper, you don't have to do that. Especially if like texture wise, that's gonna be something that your family doesn't enjoy or whatever. You definitely don't have to do that. You can definitely just leave those out. It's not going to affect the canning safety. Also, we're going to do a 1/4 inch headspace on these. I know there's a lot of people who don't water bath can their jelly, and that's fine. Whatever you're comfortable with. We are going to water bath this for 10 minutes in the hot water bath canner, but that's up to you whether you want to do that or you don't. All right, so we wiped our rims really well. We're going to put our canning lids on. And then we're just gonna finger tight down these rings and we're gonna get them in the canner, set a timer for 10 minutes. I feel really good about how this went. So I doubled the recipe and I should have only gotten 7 and I got 9. So that's pretty awesome. All right, so we have our burner turned up. This should come to a boil pretty quick because there's only 9 little half pints in there. It's not like a bunch of quarts. Zuzu is my big helper. Zuzu, you helping? Zuzu is getting me rings. So I still have all these peppers over here to do something with. I think I'm gonna do some sweet chili sauce, so look for a video on that. I might just chop some to put in the freezer just to have diced for chili or things like that. And I don't know, I might look through the books and see what else there is for fun pepper jellies. We love pepper jellies and they're just so good on so many things. So as soon as these come out of the canner, I will show them to you. And oh my gosh, look at my kitchen. It is every surface. I'm so glad we moved here in, technically we started living here in June. And I am using every inch of this counter space. I don't know. I mean, we had an island in Conestoga, so that helped. But man, I don't know how I operated. Our kitchen in Conestoga was, I feel like it was half the size of this kitchen. And I am going to be so excited when we have the preservation kitchen set up in the garage because I can have the hose there. There's a French drain. When I need to wash buckets, I can just wash it all out and oh, it's going to be amazing. But this kitchen is miles above the kitchen we had before. We loved that house. It was super cool. It was built from 2 tobacco barns. It was all wood and loft style and one room living. And we loved that. But this huge dining room attached to our kitchen is really fantastic. So we are gonna let this come to a boil. As soon as it comes to a boil, we're gonna set a timer for 10 minutes and then these are gonna be ready to go and I'm super excited. All right, so our timer went off. Typically my procedure when I'm canning anything is I turn the burner off, I let it kind of chill for a little bit, take the lid off, let some of that heat get out. I learned this lesson the hard way when I started canning is you don't just take the lid off and then pull them right out because it's probably still bubbling. It encourages siphoning. If you pull them out too quickly, you can burn yourself, whatever. So I always recommend that you pull the lid off, let some of that heat get out, let it chill for a few minutes when the water's really calmed down. I mean, it's pretty calm now. There's a few bubbles and it's probably fine. This I feel like is really important if you're doing something like peaches or something that, or broth, something that's notorious for siphoning. Jelly's not super notorious for siphoning, so it's probably not a big deal. But just from a safety perspective, I would let some of that heat get out before you pull your jar. So these look excellent. Something that if this is your first time making jelly, or if you've not made it very often, is you're not really gonna know if it sets up right away. It's gonna need to sit for a little bit and then you'll really know if it's set up well. So don't be discouraged if you pull it out and it still looks liquid. All right, so we got our 9 half pints out, sitting on our towel, waiting for all those pings and waiting for them to cool. So my procedure from here would be check them, make sure they all set up. They can take 24 to 48 hours to set up, in my experience. I'm sure somebody's gonna come at me and say that's not true, but like I said, don't get discouraged if they still look liquidy when you pull them out. Again, someone's gonna come at me about this too, because everybody loves to share their opinion. So I take my rings off. You don't have to take your rings off. You can do whatever you want. I take my rings off so that if I have a bad seal in storage, I know right away. Plus, then I don't have to go buy new rings. So probably tomorrow, because I have a lot more things to do today, I will take the rings off of those. I'll wipe them all down, label them, date them, and get them put in the pantry. If you want to see how we store all this stuff, I'll drop that video in the description as well. We have a pretty big extended pantry that we built when we moved in here. And I've had this conversation, just a little side note before we go. I've had this conversation with a few people this week about how they get kind of discouraged because they feel like they don't have enough or they're behind. Well, and then there's the people on the whole opposite spectrum who are like, why would you store all that food? That's so stupid. Or don't show your stores. That's a whole nother video. Nonetheless, I just want to tell you that this is a scaling thing. So, you know, maybe this year you do applesauce and next year you add on freezing corn and salsa or something. You know, we didn't just like wake up one morning and our pantry was filled. Like, we've been working on this for years. So don't be discouraged if you feel like, oh, I only made 8 little piddly jars of jelly today. Who cares? That's 8 more jars than you had before. So if you have questions about jelly, jams, canning, food preservation, storing your food, any of those kinds of things, love this conversation. Drop me a comment. Let me know what you need to know. We'll see you next time.